Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න. Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න.
අර පිරිමැස්ම ගැන හිතන ඔබට Vim Liquid වෙතින් රුපියල් 100ක ඉතිරියක්.
හරිම සුළුයි.
First at 9 tonight, this Saturday, the 26th of November, 2022. National question. North and East Tamil political parties agree on 3 preliminary steps, including devolution of power to address national issue.
And we considered the President's invitation for talks with regard to sharing of powers of governance and a new constitution. As a preliminary step, we decided on 3 steps.
Regional ties. Sri Lankan Foreign Minister meets Bangladeshi Prime Minister, stresses the importance of shipping and air connectivity.
Generally, our policy is the same. We are dynamically neutral. We a kind of friends for all, an enemy on none.
No haircuts. Sri Lanka should not go in for a reduction of outstanding interest payments when restructuring domestic debt, says former State Minister of Finance, SJB MP Iran Vikramaratne.
Restructuring is not the problem. I'm not for a haircut.
Actually, the government has no intention of giving.
Energy consignment. 10.6 million litres of diesel gifted by China to strengthen agriculture in Sri Lanka reaches the Colombo port.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Indivadi Amuwata. From Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome. We have your top stories for you tonight. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena says necessary provisions to hold the local government elections are currently being prepared by the Delimitation Commission. He made these comments addressing the committee stage debate on Budget 2023 today. Meanwhile, parliamentarian of the Samagi Jana Balavegaya, Mayantha Disanayaka, called for a system change in order to ensure a country with a better future for the youth.
පළාත් පාලන මැතිවරණ ඉතාමත් ඉක්මනින් තියන්න අවශ්‍ය වැඩපිළිවෙල රජයේ පැත්තෙන් කරන්න මැතිවරණ කොමිසම ලෑස්ති වෙලා ඉන්නවා ඒ මැතිවරණය පවත්වන්න.
මැතිවරණය පැවැත්වීම සඳහා අවශ්‍ය ප්‍රතිපාදන සකස් කිරීමේ සීමා නිර්ණය කමිසම වැඩ කරගෙන යන අතර මැතිවරණ කොමිසම තමයි ඡන්දය තියන්නේ.
කියන්නේ මැතිවරණ බීතිකාවක් නිසා වෙන්න ඕ වෙන හේතුවක් නිසා පළාත් සභාවලට කරපු දේ පළාත් පාලන ආයතන වලට කරන්න එපා. අපි අලුතෙන් ඒකට අවශ්‍ය කරන පනත ගේනවා බය වෙන්න එපා ගේනවා. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ අයවැය විරුද්ධ
We must hand over a country or hand down a country to the next generation that is a better country than what we inherited from our parents. Must we now look at a completely new system? Must we look at a system where we are throwing the baby and the bathwater out? The youth are leaving. Educated people are leaving this country. Professionals are leaving this country. We are once again faced with an immense brain drain. It is very simple and very easy, Honourable Chairman, even for businesses in this global economy to move around. Businesses from Sri Lanka are moving to countries like Bangladesh. Garment factories are closing down. So it is nice to have a policy in place, but we need to come together in terms of implementing and maybe perhaps stop petty politics in this country, because the point I'm trying to make is that system that we have implemented all these years, system that we have tinkered with, has failed this country, and we need to move forward from now on. And we must reset this country. If not, I don't know where it's going to lead.
Now, the National Council discussed the establishment of a special statutory body to oversee the implementation of its proposals and recommendations. It also emphasised that proposals and recommendations brought by the National Council should not be limited to a document and that they should be implemented.
The National Council of Parliament met on Thursday under the patronage of Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Abeyewardena. During the meeting, the members pointed out that the proposals and recommendations brought by the National Council should not be limited to a document and that they should be implemented and followed up accordingly. Following that, the members discussed on the establishment of a specialized statutory body to oversee the implementation of their proposals and recommendations. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena said he will look into the possibility of establishing such a statutory body soon. While highlighting that the fuel and energy crisis is a huge challenge to be faced in the coming years, the Premier said that the National Council should pay attention in this regard. Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Apabewardena meanwhile emphasised on the importance of preparing a policy for the provincial councils and central government to work together, pointing out that this need will be felt more after a provincial council election in the future.
North and East Tamil political parties representing the North and East met last evening to discuss the invitation by President Ranil Wickremesinghe for talks on resolving issues reached by the Sri Lankan Tamil community. According to MP M.A. Sumanthiran, the parties have agreed on 3 preliminary steps to address the issues reached by the Tamil community. The decisions taken during this meeting last night is to be presented to President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
A meeting between several political parties representing the Tamil community of the North and the East was held yesterday at the official residence of MP R. Sambanthan. During the meeting, several issues were discussed among the parties and a final agreement was reached to pursue 3 preliminary steps to address issues faced by the North and the East Tamil community.
Tamil parties representing the North and East met today, and we considered the President's invitation for talks with regard to sharing of powers of governance and a new constitution. As a preliminary step, we decided on 3 steps. The first is that all lands that have been taken over by the state through various agencies must immediately be returned to the owners, and land grabs that are going on now must immediately be stopped. Second, all constitutional and other legal provisions with regard to power sharing arrangements now extant in the laws must immediately be enforced, and provincial council elections must be held without delay. Thirdly, on the basis of internal self-determination in the areas of historic habitation of the Tamil-speaking people, there must be highest possible devolution on a federal basis in the North and East. We would welcome such arrangements being implemented in the rest of the country as well.
මේ ඉඳගෙන අරගලයක් අරකයි මේකයි කියාගෙන හිටියතින් මේ රට දැන් තියෙන තත්වයට අපි මොකුත් කරන්න බැරි යනවා. පංගුවක් වෙලාවේ අපේ අයිතිකම අපි කියාගෙන ඒ වෙලාවේ මේ ප්‍රශ්නම ඇති කරන්නේ නැතුව ඉදිරියට යන්න අපි උත්සාහ කරන්න ඕන.
ඉතිතුමා කියලා තියෙනවා අවසරයක් නැතුව කිසිම උද්ඝෝෂණයක් කරන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. ඔබතුමාලගේ අදහස මොකක්ද මේ සම්බන්ධව?
ජනාධිපතිතුමා එහෙම කියපු එක මම වැරදි කියලා මම හිතන්නේ. නමුත් මිනිසුන්ගේ අයිතිකම ඒකට හානියක් වෙන්නේ නැතුව ඒගොල්ලන්ට තමන්ගේ ප්‍රශ්නවල් හෙළිදරව් කරන්න පුළුවන්. මිනිසුන්ට අවහිර කරන්න හැටියට ඒක තියෙන්න හොඳ නැහැ කියලා තමයි මම හිතන්නේ.
According to the Chinese embassy in Colombo, oil tanker Super Eastern carrying a consignment of diesel amounting to 10.6 million litres donated by China has reached Sri Lankan shores today. The Chinese embassy stated that the unloading of the diesel consignment will commence after sample testing. This diesel consignment will be handed over to the Energy Ministry to be distributed among farmers and fishermen in remote areas of the island to upgrade the livelihood of the most affected in the sectors of agriculture and fisheries. Foreign Affairs Minister Ali Sabri says he hopes to see more investments between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and that there is a massive potential for trade and investment relationship between the two countries. In an interview with Bangladesh's DBC News, the Foreign Minister said both countries share the same foreign policy of friends of all and enemy of none.
The trade relationship for Bangladesh and Sri Lanka has been for years. So how is the situation now for the import and exports between the countries?
We generally do about 300 to 400 million old both ways, but that's not doing justice for the potential that we have. So we hope to see that more investment take place in both countries. Bangladeshis have just started to invest in Sri Lanka, just in less than $10 million or something. But going forward, I think there is a lot of potential in both ways for our people to come here and the Bangladeshi nationals to come there and take this relationship to a next level. Sri Lanka is also now in the process of opening up education to the outside and inviting people to come there with our good educational infrastructure there. When it comes to economy, because of the situation what we have, two things we have not. We are very proud of our free education and free healthcare. So whatever the reforms take place, we want to keep that as it is. But only thing what we would like to do is to create more private sector universities, private sector tertiary education and skill training institutions, vocational training institutions, so more people can learn and acquire vocational training and skill training so that they could be better employed in other countries. And as well as we continue to grow as far as our economic integration is concerned. About more than 50% of your garment trade goes to the west through the Colombo port. So we are trying to work, strengthen that also. Bangladesh is a very important country for us and we are part of the South Asia. We hope that one day whole South Asia could be integrated just like a European Union or ASEAN Council or North America. So everybody benefits out of it. I think the most moderate countries are most friendly countries in the South Asia, East Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. So we have a great role to play together. I think generally our policy is the same. We are dynamically neutral. We are kind of friends for all and enemy on none.
On behalf of the Sri Lankan government, Foreign Minister Ali Sabri conveyed an invitation to the Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to visit Sri Lanka at a mutually convenient time. The invitation was extended during a meeting between Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and Foreign Minister Sabri at the Bangladeshi Prime Minister's official residence yesterday.
While on his visit to Bangladesh to attend the 22nd ministerial meeting of the Indian Ocean Rim Association in Dhaka, Sri Lankan Foreign Minister Ali Sabri paid a courtesy call on Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina at her official residence in Ghana Baban yesterday. At the meeting, Prime Minister Hasina wished Sri Lanka a speedy economic recovery. According to reports, during the meeting, Minister Sabri stressed the importance of shipping and air connectivity between the two countries to boost trade relations. Discussing regional and multilateral cooperation, Bangladeshi Prime Minister Hasina has pointed out that the prolonged presence of more than 1 million forcibly displaced Rohingyas from Myanmar poses a serious threat to the overall socio-economy, environment and security architecture in Bangladesh and the entire region. She sought Sri Lanka's support for a sustainable, safe and voluntary repatriation of these forcibly displaced Rohingyas to their ancestral land in Rakhine State, Myanmar. The Prime Minister also discussed the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the regional economy. Minister Sabri also underscored that Sri Lankans were interested in investing in Bangladesh and invited investments from Bangladesh. Ali Sabri also conveyed an invitation on behalf of the Sri Lankan government to the Bangladeshi Prime Minister to visit Colombo at a mutually convenient time. The meeting ended with a pledge to continue the friendly cooperation between the two countries in the days ahead.
Parliamentarian of the Samagi Jana Balavega, Iran Vikramaratne, said they oppose any decision of the government to go in for domestic debt restructuring haircuts. He made these comments while addressing a budget forum in Colombo.
Privatization, in my opinion, is privatizing something that is owned by the state. Public-private partnership is a different story. I have always promoted public-private partnerships. I have never promoted privatizing what is already with the government. For example, Sri Lanka Insurance, privatizing I am against. But I will always recommend these non-performing government sector organizations to ask the private sector also to come and put money into that. Increase the capital and run a public-private partnership. Bring better management. I'm against privatization because in Sri Lanka, privatization means corruption.
The President has taken the initiative to revisit the discussions and make sure that we go into a broader free trade agreements. And secondly, with regards to youth, we can see a lot of people are now, including youth, looking at different employment options outside Sri Lanka. Why it is happening is they don't have hope in the economy. So the fundamental reform what we'll have to do is ensure that credibility is back in the economy and the economy should start growing. And we look at a growth from 2023 onwards so that we will have more opportunities in Sri Lanka. Also, with regards to the Presidential Commission which is proposed at the budget, especially to look at management of revenue of the government. Because as at now, we can see different institutions who are responsible for collecting revenue work in isolation. They are not linked to each other. So one thing, the digitalization would be one of the priorities. We have also asked expertise to come and revisit the systems what they are using to propose us the improvements we could do to have a better management of economies. And also, whenever budget is presented, there is no way of checking how the budget has performed up until the next budget. So we are creating a mechanism to ensure that there will be periodical reviews on the performance of the budget.
What will happen if the government goes for a local debt restructuring?
I have opposed the local debt restructuring right from the beginning. One is the psychological blow will be very big, but also I think our priority should be is to make sure that the banking system stays stable. I understand that there are gross financial requirements and ratios and all this, but I think we have to negotiate it. And in the negotiation, time is going to be the issue. So we won't be able to push through some of the reforms as fast as we think. We may have to take more time if we are going to basically not allow an immediate local debt restructuring. What I mean by restructuring is not the problem. I'm not for a haircut. Let me be specific.
There are various news articles getting circulated and comments made by different people that the government is taking measures to take a haircut on domestic debt. Actually, the government has no intention of giving a haircut.
The Ceylon Chamber of Commerce says attracting sustainable finances will be the way forward for Sri Lanka until the country overcomes this crisis and make economic climate favourable for the traditional investors. Convening a media briefing, the Chamber said it had identified 15 opportunities in 5 sectors, including renewable energy, food and agriculture and waste management for profitable investments.
We feel in this environment, until the ratings improve, the traditional investors will think twice about moving into a country like Sri Lanka. But sustainable finance is a completely different arena where there's an entire body of investors who are looking for investments which are compliant with governance standards, what we call environmental, social and governance standards. So they are looking at it in a different perspective, not purely in terms of financial returns. Recently we even developed a map on SDG compliant investment opportunities working with the UNDP. So we think maybe that's the way to look at the immediate term until the environment becomes better for the more regular kind of investors to start coming in.
This SDG compliant businesses, what came out of that?
We identified 15 opportunities amongst 5 sectors. So renewable energy was one, for example, wind, solar and biomass and biofuels. And then we identified in the food and agricultural space, for example, we still need cold chain storage, then to promote our fisheries, the role of aquaculture, and also trying to see how, we are seeing certain companies who even within the tea industry, for example, are implementing digital technologies to improve their supply chain, but not enough of them are doing that and going towards that direction. So there also we saw an opportunity. And then in line with, for example, the BOI who are trying to push the fabric parks as well, we saw that as an opportunity because there is a lot of sustainable initiatives on that side of it. And then on the waste management side, because the Chamber in particular has been working with the Ministry of Environment in what you call material recovery facilities. Already about 4 companies have set that up, but there is a roadmap to get to 30. It's not a Western province oriented kind of thing, it's across the country. These can be set up in a particular district or area to kind of bring the community together, to bring the collectors together, and people can recycle, use that recycle for even packaging and so many other things. The idea, I think, as the next steps is to get investors, impact investors and other investors who might won't look at pure profit, but look at a societal return, an SDG related return, to come into these sectors. And I think the next step UNDP and the others are taking is to have very sector focused discussions and try to get these investment funds to come in. And it might not be direct investment into companies, it could be to a bank where they can lend to the private sector.
Now, following the recent outbreak of COVID in China and inflation still crippling in economies around the world, most stock markets worldwide closed lower yesterday. Meanwhile, US stocks closed mixed in a short session. The Nasdaq index closed lower on Black Friday, traditionally the busiest shopping day of the year.
Yesterday's session focused on retailers as Black Friday sales kicked off against the backdrop of stubbornly high inflation and cooling economic growth. Shoppers were expected to turn out in record numbers to shop for Black Friday deals, but with inclement weather, crowds outside stores were thin on the traditionally busiest shopping day of the year. So far this year, the S&P 500 retail index is down a little over 30%, while the S&P 500 has fallen 15%. According to experts, starting next week, investors will focus on retail sales, China's newest COVID outbreak, and the Federal Reserve's next steps. Wall Street's main indexes have rallied strongly from their early October lows, with the S&P 500 up more than 15% on a boost from a better-than-expected earnings season and more recently on hopes of less aggressive interest rate hikes by the US Federal Reserve. Analysts now see a 71.1% chance that the Fed will increase its key benchmark rate by 50 basis points in December, with rates peaking in June 2023. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.45% to 34,347.03, while the S&P 500 lost 0.03% at 4,026.12. And the Nasdaq Composite dropped 0.52% to 11,226.36. All three indices ended the Thanksgiving week with gains led by the Dow, which rose 1.78%.
Now, a group of top-level Japanese entrepreneurs called on Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena to discuss possible new investments in Sri Lanka. During the meeting, the Prime Minister invited the Japanese delegates to invest in new areas such as agriculture, fisheries, motor vehicle components, pharmaceuticals and hospitality industries in Sri Lanka. He said that Sri Lanka remains open to explore opportunities to further deepening and widening of bilateral relations, not only by greater trade and investment cooperation, but also in the education sector, including Japanese language teaching. The delegation assured that they would encourage more and more Japanese companies to invest in Sri Lanka. Well, that's all from us tonight. I'm Indiveri Amuatha. Good night.